Committee meeting here on March 31st, 2021. I call this meeting to order, and I will just do a quick roll call. We'll start with Councillor Cartmel.
Good afternoon.
See you in the house, looking good today. Councillor Tang.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Councillor Principe.
Hello.
Hello, and I am here, and Mayor Sohi is off. Doing his thing. Okay, so we have a little bit of agenda management here, I think, and I'll go to the clerk to sort of walk us through that one.
We can. Did you want to start with the land acknowledgement?
Yeah, I guess that's actually not a bad idea. So at this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and the Métis homeland, and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, as well as Métis and Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. And I love this land acknowledgement, and I will say, on a personal note, it's always odd to me to acknowledge it, as I feel I'm acknowledging myself, but this is all good. All right, so please, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so first, if we could do a motion to adopt today's agenda, and then we will clean up the conflict with the Wednesday meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Now, so we'll get to that right after we move request to speak. I can do that unless anyone wants to jump in.
Can we adopt today's agenda first?
Oh, yep. Yep, I jumped ahead. Yeah, so go ahead, Councillor Principe.
I'll move that to adopt the March 31st Special Executive Committee meeting.
All right, thank you. Okay. And I am not aware of any protocol items.
Could we vote on that item?
What's that?
Could we vote on the adoption of the agenda?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing great this afternoon, hey? Sorry. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's vote on that. And I am a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette.
My apologies. I had a meeting right up into the last second before this one, and I'm still changing gears. Okay.
Councillor Cartmel?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried. Okay.
So if now what we could do, so now you've adopted an agenda today that will continue today and then on to Wednesday, which has a conflict with us for the pre-existing meeting. So could we possibly pass a motion to cancel that April 2nd regular meeting? This meeting will still continue at that time. We just won't have two meetings simultaneously.
Yeah, that's clear. Does anyone have any questions? Would anyone like to move that? I'll move that.
Thank you.
Okay, and I am a yes.
May we, yeah, we vote on that?
Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried. Okay, so now please select items for debate. Looks like a very short meeting. We do have a request to speak on item 3.1, and so I will select that. Oh, I see Karen Tang is now, Councillor Tang is now on the board. So go ahead, Councillor Tang.
I'll select 5-1.
Okay.
You got 3-1. Okay.
Okay. So 5-1 and 3-1. Are you taking that one?
0-4-1. Actually, I'll do 4-1.
4-1.
I have questions on that one.
Through 5-1 and 4-1. Okay. Councillor Carmel, go ahead.
No, nothing more than that, thanks.
Okay. And Councillor Principe?
Thank you, Chair Paquette. I would like to select item 4.2.
4-2. Okay. Got it. And I did select 3-1 already, so we'll just leave it at that. Is that all? looks like it. Okay. So, those are the items selected for debate. Please vote on reports not selected for debate.
Can I just clarify who's going to move the motion for the recommendations?
I'll move them all.
Thank you, Councillor Cartmel.
Yeah, we need a motion on that. Okay. Okay, yeah, that looks good. All right, please vote. I am a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried.
Before you keep going, can I read back what committee has dealt with today?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So today, the committee has passed the recommendations in the following reports without debate. Item 4.3, reallocation of the Ozerna surplus school site for school use. Item 4.4, sale of land in Heritage Valley above delegated authority. Item 4.5, Valley Line contract amendments. Item 4.6, approval of sole source agreement with ATCO Pipelines for the Capital Line South LRT. Item 4.7, bylaw 21058, closure of vehicular access to titled parcel for active transportation implementation acceleration 2025 program. And item 4.8, bylaw 21072, to designate the Stewart residence as a municipal historic resource.
Great, thank you so much. And we do have one request to speak, so I'll just move that for 3.1. Heather Thompson, Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. In person, it says, but I'm not seeing anyone. Is she online, Heather?
Maybe attending later, knowing that your first item is 5.1.
Yeah, okay, so, well, we'll just move for that anyway.
We can approve it today, yes.
I'll move that we hear from that speaker when they arrive. Please vote. I am a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. We have all the votes.
Display the vote. And that is carried. Okay. So we have 5.1 is first item of business, and that will require that we go into private.
I'll move
Thank you.
that we go in private, subject to sections 21, 24, 25, and 28 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
That's a full house. Okay. Please vote. I am a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried.
Thank you. Just give us a moment to close the doors and ensure we have the right people online.
All right, thank you. display the vote. Oh, and that's unanimous. Okay,
So before we turn the cameras back on, where would you like to go from here?
I believe that Councillor Tang will probably just make a motion to receive for information and keep in private pursuant to.
Okay, we are live.
Okay, Councillor Tang, please go ahead.
Great. I will move that the April 2nd, 2025 Integrated Infrastructure Services Report IIS 02964 be received for information, and that this report remain private pursuant to sections 21, 24, 25, and 28 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried. All right, so we have a speaker on 3.1. It is unfinished business, so if the speaker is online or coming into the room, we will proceed with that. If we cannot get the speaker online, then we will proceed to 4.1 as we manage that. So just give us a heads up when you're ready to go.
Yeah, we are just working on the speaker, but you could get the presentation if you wished, and then we will continue to reach out to them.
That sounds great. Okay, so we have members of administration coming down to give a report on item 3.1. And just let us know when you're ready. Okay, sounds like we're ready to go.
Okay, good afternoon, members of Executive Committee. I'm Tom Gervin, Acting Branch Manager of Economic Investment Services, and I'm joined here today by my colleague Yvonne Provenos, and Charles Gordon is online. We are presenting today on the November 1st, 2023 City Budget Motion, which instructs that administration provide a report for the reinstatement of the Development Incentive Program, including recommended improvements to better contribute to the implementation of City Plan. In an environment of increasing economic uncertainty, this program is particularly important as investments in these types of projects have an impact over time on the non-residential tax base. Please advance to slide 2. Thank you. The Development Incentive Program was created to encourage the revitalization of Main Street commercial areas through financial incentives for property owners, which were aimed at reducing chronic commercial vacancies and encouraging investment in new commercial and mixed-use development. The program was focused on properties within business improvement areas, known as BIAs, as well as 2 other specially designed council-approved areas, Little Italy and Norwood Boulevard. The program offered 2 reimbursement grant streams, each covering 50% of eligible costs to set maximum amounts. The intended outcome of this funding was to reduce the financial barriers of renovating chronically vacant commercial spaces and to encourage investment in Main Street areas by helping to financially de-risk commercial redevelopment projects while allowing the city to have some influence in the design and features. The Development Incentive Program was launched in 2009 with an annual budget of up to $750,000 before the program ended as part of the fall 2023 supplemental operating budget adjustment. Next slide, please. 2 indicators of a strong local economy and vibrant commercial Main Street areas are the commercial vacancy rate and new commercial construction activity. Commercial vacancy rates within BIAs fluctuate and range from 0.1% in Fort Road up to 12.13% in the downtown. The rate is calculated based on number of vacancies advertised, so units that are vacant are not actively being marketed and are not counted, meaning the rate could be much higher in some areas, and indeed some BIAs have recently reported rates as high as 20%. In some BIAs, there are properties that have potential for commercial use but require renovations to make them suitable. So while not considered vacant in that they are available but unsuitable, there is a potential to unlock commercial space through program-supported funding. We have heard from business owners that the biggest barrier to opening new brick-and-mortar storefronts is securing financing, often required for renovations or modifications to the interior space to make it functional for their specific use. The city supports residential infill through a variety of tools, initiatives, and programs, such as rezoning priority growth areas and the Infill Infrastructure Fund. However, there is no similar program to support commercial development and redevelopment. Ensuring that there are quality commercial amenities and opportunities to support residential densification in turn supports thriving 15-minute districts, adding jobs to our nodes and corridors. There are an estimated 85 to 95 vacant or underutilized lots within the proposed commercial redevelopment grant area that could take advantage of this proposed program, based on estimates provided by the BIAs and visual counts by city staff. Next slide, please. To help address commercial vacancy rates and the current state of commercial development and in direct support of city plan goals, administration is providing an approach to launch 2 new targeted matching reimbursement grant programs, a commercial vacancy reduction grant and a commercial redevelopment grant. These 2 distinct programs have been conceptualized based on data and stakeholder feedback. The new programs allow the city to invest directly and strategically in our local economy to support brick and mortar businesses, stimulating new private sector investment in priority communities within the city, which creates jobs through construction. Results will include reduced commercial vacancies and further densification, which also contributes to increased non-residential property valuations. By demonstrating the city's commitment to being business-friendly, the results translate into more vibrant communities that meet more of their residents' needs. Next slide, please. As you can see in the first map, BIA member businesses would see the return of a dedicated program to help address chronic commercial vacancies, while broader priority areas, which is the second map on the right, would gain access to a program that encourages redevelopment, which not only can provide new commercial space, and in this case of mixed-use new residential space too, but also can help increase the future assessed values of the properties that are approved for funding. This combination of BIAs and priority growth areas provides a clearer alignment with city plan, and in the case of the commercial redevelopment grant, can help to provide new commercial opportunities for neighborhoods growing through infill and new residential development. I'll now pass it to Charles Gordon to address more of the details and next steps.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, committee. The economic benefits of the proposed programs include stimulating private sector investment in priority communities within the city, creating jobs through construction, reducing commercial vacancies by enabling empty spaces to be renovated to accommodate new business users, and adding the livability and adaptability of districts. Buildings with empty storefronts will attract new businesses, increasing the usage of these buildings, which can contribute to valuations. Investments into these properties is sticky in that whether a business lasts or turns over or grows, the money invested stays with the property. And new construction will increase future assessed values of properties that are redeveloped with higher uses. In addition to contributing to city plan outcomes, the proposed programs can support Action 10 of the Economic Action Plan, which directs administration to explore ways to incentivize property owners to attract tenants to vacant properties and to encourage the development of vacant or underutilized land in order to increase commercial activity in nodes and corridors. Next slide, please. The first new program proposed is a commercial vacancy reduction grant. Next slide. The purpose of this grant is to reduce barriers to opening brick and mortar storefronts in priority commercial areas within the city. The proposed program would offer reimbursement grants of up to $30,000 to small business owners or commercial property owners within BIAs who are moving into ground floor storefronts that have been vacant for 6 months or longer, helping to de-risk the project. The 6 months is related to the time frame deemed to be designated as chronically vacant under the program. The funding would help with required improvements such as upgraded HVAC, new floors, permanent fixtures, roofs, and installing automatic doors to improve accessibility. These investments all stay with the property and should the business not last or property changes ownership, ensuring the city's investment remains in Edmonton and in our communities. As Tom mentioned, business owners have told us that the biggest challenge in opening a brick and mortar storefront is financing. Many commercial units available for lease are shell spaces, and depending on their lease, a business owner may have to pay for all the interior improvements to make a space functional. Since the Development Incentive Program was closed to new applications in 2023, administration has received numerous inquiries about when it might be reinstated from business owners who are looking for help. The Commercial Vacancy Reduction Grant can help new businesses thrive while increasing the experiences in our main streets. Next slide, please. The second program proposed is a commercial redevelopment grant. The proposed program would offer reimbursement grants of up to $400,000 for new commercial or mixed-use developments that align with the eligibility areas for the Infill Infrastructure Fund and also includes the BIAs. Market forces dictate where and when a building is constructed. However, the proposed commercial redevelopment grant is an economic development tool that signals the types of new buildings that the city wants to see in priority growth areas. A reimbursement grant model means that the funding is allocated to the project prior to construction, but is not paid until the building itself is complete. This type of deliberate investment can help de-risk pro formas, secure financing from lenders, and attract investors to new projects while reducing risk to the city as grants are not issued until a satisfactory outcome is achieved. While businesses and property owners are more likely to delay new investments during uncertain economic conditions, the city's commitment to a project is a sign of confidence and serves to partially counteract uncertainty. As a competitive grant, this program would encourage high quality design, energy efficiency, and accessibility standards that surpass the minimums required by bylaws and regulations. Completed projects are expected to have increased future assessed property values due to significant improvements that would be made through redevelopment. Next slide, please. Current budgets do not include funding for the programs that we have described. To proceed, a council motion is required to direct funding of up to $700,000 in total ongoing for both programs for consideration during a future budget process, such as the fall 2025 budget supplemental operating budget adjustment or the 2027-2030 budget process. This amount seeks to balance the minimum amount for the program to be viable and effective with the city's current fiscal challenges. The programs are both scalable and additional funding will yield additional results. If proceeding, a motion will also be required to rescind City Policy 553C Development Incentive Program, which will be replaced with an administrative standard for each new program. These standards will ensure agility in program delivery while preserving measurement, compliance, and program monitoring in line with the authority delegated to the city manager in the City Administration Bylaw 16620. No new staff resources are required to implement the new programs as existing staff within the Economic Investment Services branch can deliver these programs. Last slide. We're happy to address any questions you may have. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Before we move to questions, we do have a speaker. Heather Thompson, are you with us?
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Great. All right, you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Awesome. Am I allowed to share my screen, or I did send my slides over?
Okay, so if you sent your slides over, the clerk should have them.
Yeah, just give
And
us a
then
minute.
they will be able to put it on the
Okay.
screen for you.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you
So
very much.
If you just wait a moment, we'll make sure that they have it and put it up on the screen for you.
Yeah, we'll just have to locate it. Just give us a moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Great.
I can start, and that way I can get, when they come up, we can just go from there. Does that work?
If you're comfortable with that, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and will they know from context which slide to be on?
I think by the time I'm done talking, we'll go to, just the second slide, I think will probably be the right one to start at.
Okay, great. If you're comfortable,
perfect.
please go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Heather Thompson. I am the Vice President of Economy and Engagement here at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. And today I am speaking very much in favor of this program. And I think one of the biggest lenses that we have here at the Chamber of Commerce is how are we advocating for tax dollars being spent effectively with the highest return of investment. And so I'd like to outline some of the reasons why. Perfect. You can get rid of the speaking notes. That would be great. Can you see them? Or am I sharing my screen? No. Sorry.
Why don't we just pause your time for a moment?
Yeah, if that's
and,
okay. Sorry.
The clerks are just working on it, so if you
Okay.
don't mind. We just want to be
Yeah,
able
no,
to
it's
get
okay.
the full effect of your presentation.
I appreciate that.
So how are things?
I was like, I can tell some jokes. I don't
Do
have any
not-
economic jokes though. But I'm looking at Charles. Charles will laugh.
Yeah, let's not encourage that.
There we go. Amazing. Okay, great. Yeah, second slide, please. And clearly ignore the date because we thought it was on Wednesday.
All right, okay. And if everyone's ready, please proceed.
So yeah, and if we can go to the next slide, that would be great. Awesome. Yeah. So as I was saying, yeah, we're very much in favor for this program. I think what Tom and Charles have just outlined is the positive impact to the economy. So really stimulating that private investment. And I think when we're looking at these different areas that are being proposed, this is definitely something that we need to be investing in to strengthen our competitive advantage, especially as a city. We're not as strong as we once were. So I think it's really important that we're putting some of this money into some of those things. And so if we can go to the next slide, this is kind of where I just wanted to go over a few of these things that, I mean, we all know a lot about this, but when we're looking at overall, I'm just using the DVA as a bit of an example here in the boundaries, but retail vacancy is almost a third empty. Office also quite high. And we're seeing a lot of residential permits. We're just not seeing them pulled anymore, really since 2021. And so when we're looking at how are we incentivizing economic investment from the private sector, there are so many different cases where that actually happens when we see the public sector invest and the private sector will follow. And we see really high rates of return on investment. When we were polling our members, we saw that 79% of them are really concerned about affordability from an individual and as a business standpoint, and they would like to see their tax dollars very much invested in economic development opportunities and other infrastructure. And this very much aligns with that. Next slide, please. So just like a few fun examples here, when we're looking at the overall investment that we were seeing from previous programs that were in support of development incentives, we saw such a high return on investment. And that was really only about $3.3 million. And we saw, easily 3-4 times of investment coming back. And so we saw these 3 residential units. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to be really supporting is how are we getting people to move into these areas? Because yes, development from a commercial standpoint is really important, but having the physical human body live down there is what's actually going to fuel the overall outcome of success for years and years and decades to come. And so when we see the support of the financial investment into these development areas, we see the private money follow. And we want to see more people moving downtown, and that's going to be, and into these areas, these proposed areas, and this is going to make a huge difference. And then if we go to the next slide. I think the big thing here is, yes, we support this. We definitely want to see more money supported into this. And I think there's so much demonstration even here within Edmonton that is the right way to spend money if we want to reduce property tax and have a reduced burden onto the Edmonton resident, is to spend money in this way. The one thing I want to flag is that we support the principle of this grant program. But I would like to underscore that we're not going to see a significant economic return on the amount of money that's proposed in terms of funding. If we want to see this money play out in a meaningful way for the economy, we need to be looking at millions and millions of dollars. And I think from the Chamber's perspective, we will very much support that, because we can see the money come back in, like I said, in a meaningful way to support the economy. And I understand that that's not necessarily the conversation we're having today. I just kind of wanted to underline that, yes, this is a great conversation. Happy to have happy to have this conversation around this development incentive program. But this is an easy yes for us in terms of the actual money that's being proposed for this fall. And then what we would like to recommend and support would be further discussions on how we can make a larger impact with public funds. And then the other thing I would say in relation to that is that, given the limited funding, we would really recommend that if it's possible, to target that into a specific area. And I think when we look at the data and the research, looking at other cities, it's very clear that if we can concentrate that investment, whether it's hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, we see the larger impact. And then the residual funding that comes around just within the blocks that are around that area, you can definitely see the financial impact. So I'll leave it there. But yes, to summarize, we very much are in favor of this, and we want more money to go to programs like this.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I will look to committee to see if there are questions. Anyone on committee first? Councillor Tang, please go ahead.
Yes, great, thank you. I'll also appreciate the letter that was sent just before this meeting to everyone. I think I just want to maybe clarify a few things with your presentation. This is citywide investment, not just focused on downtown. That's clear, right? Okay. Yeah, because I think some of the examples you have referenced in the letter was really focused around downtown, and we have the downtown investment plan. That's a report coming back in May or June. I'm sure you're aware of that. And the downtown CRL conversation, while still we're very open to that conversation still, but that is also hundreds of millions of dollars on that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't want to conflate the two things together.
No, I appreciate that. Apologies for not making that more clear. I wanted to kind of hone in as this area as an example of where the investment would really have the most impact. When we look at the data and the overall economic zones, we're seeing that a lot of other areas, maybe outside older neighborhoods, don't need as much support in terms of incentivizing development. So that was, I appreciate the flags. I don't think I made that clear. I wanted to just highlight as a bit of an example, because it would have been really hard to do that in a lot of different areas within the city in a 5-minute presentation.
Yeah. And then just also, I think you had said it would be great to kind of get this started this fall, but in the presentation, I believe it talked about the next budget cycle.
Yes.
Or future, but like what I'm hearing from you is now.
Yes, now, absolutely. As soon as possible, the better. And then for future deliberation, a way larger amount in another budget.
Right, and certainly I think there could be potential for scaling, but does the chamber have a position on based on some of the needs assessment you've done with members and what that amount is?
I think we'd like to see something, and I know, and you listed all the other programs. There's a lot of different kind of cooks in this economic development conversation. I think when we look at other case studies, and we'll use Calgary as a really easy example. There are upwards of 200 million that have gone into development incentives at this point. And so when we see the critical impact in the private investment that has followed that funding, it's substantial. And so when we're saying we'd like to see more funding for development programs like this, we mean in the tunes of like 100 million or more.
Right. And I think that example was specific to the office conversion, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just as a development incentive program that I have off the top of my head. I
Yeah.
understand that there are different versions of that,
That's right.
but just for if we're talking about what members are supporting, that's a good example of something that our members would very much like to see.
Right. And I think that conversation is still very much on the table through the
Yeah.
the CRL conversation. Okay. I think that's it for now. Oh, I guess just one flag I had in your presentation. I was a little bit perhaps confused, that data around no residential permits since 2021. I'm not sure about that, but happy to make sure we clarify that information with administration afterwards. But thank you.
Okay, yeah, perfect. That'd be great.
All right, thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate the presentation and the reflections. Just wanted to dig in a little bit more. I think your point around sort of like deconcentrating, or the risk of sort of spreading out too thin. So I just want to understand, like, is it your recommendation that we tighten up the geographical boundaries?
Yeah, I think that's definitely our recommendation. Like, this isn't enough money to go very far, even if it is tightened up, and because the budget seems pretty limited, I would definitely recommend, it's on behalf of the chamber, we would recommend that this will have the largest impact from an economic standpoint if it can be concentrated into an area. I think in a nutshell, if we can tighten the boundaries and invest more money, we will see the larger bang for our buck when we're spending in this sort of capacity.
And so the recommendation, just for clarity, is that downtown? Is that the BIAs? What is the specific thought there?
Yeah, I would definitely say that we're looking at the downtown for sure in terms of for building up that tax base again that we've talked about a lot in terms of how are we reducing that property tax burden on the Edmonton resident. And one of the best ways we can do that is to invest that into the commercial districts that already have so much infrastructure in place. So whether it's downtown, maybe it's 118th Ave, maybe it's Old Strathcona, but those areas where we've already have so much invested from an infrastructure standpoint that we're missing out on creating dollars for Edmontonian and general spending as well.
Okay, that's great. And yeah, I mean, I think that's another point of clarification just in terms of the number of development permits downtown and also the tax base. My understanding is that we haven't, like in absolute terms, lost that much in tax revenue in the downtown, but appreciate sort of that proportional share.
Yeah.
I think a challenge I'm facing is, and I'll clarify this with administration, but my recollection is that these funds, these programs in the past were always undersubscribed. So that's where I may be a bit more hesitant in terms of increasing the funding, given that we haven't seen it fully used, even within the boundaries where it existed previously, which were more narrow. So I don't know if you've heard thoughts in terms of what was maybe contributing to that, if there were barriers in the program design, or how you might account for the lack of uptake in that.
I think that's a great point. I'd be happy to dive into that from our membership perspective. What we're hearing, whenever a company is going to invest their time or money into going after these grants and going through, and grant programs should be, comprehensive, and there's definitely some steps towards them, but there's not. I think we're talking about relative terms, because I don't want this to make it sound like businesses aren't grateful for the opportunity or the money, but the overall money that they're asking for isn't a lot. It won't make a huge dent. So I think that if we're looking at a sizable investment, when we're talking construction and investment in infrastructure, it's a lot of money. Whereas $30,000 maybe doesn't go that far and therefore it's not worth their time. And so therefore we're not seeing as many businesses apply for it. Whereas if we look at other development incentive programs, it's really worth their time to have the skin in the game and go through this process and go through the application. And because they know that this is a partner, opportunity. So they know that the math just makes more sense for them, because when we're talking infrastructure and development, we're talking in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I know not necessarily in this case, depending on the scope of what these businesses are looking at. But I just don't think we can really underscore how much businesses are putting forward and what their time is worth.
Yeah, well, and I think, and hopefully, increasing the maximums a bit to 30,000 from 20,000 and up to 400,000 for the development incentive maybe helps to get to that point in terms of it being a big enough incentive. Well, and just because I have a minute left, I'm going to ask administration about this as well, but I have some mixed feelings, I guess, around, so we recognize, as you've highlighted, we have a lot of commercial space, right? That's not, especially that sort of that main floor, ground floor retail that isn't being used. And so I just wonder about the implications of incentivizing more commercial being built. Like, don't we end up with an oversupply of commercial ultimately, or is there a risk of that happening?
I think that I can speak to the retail one in particular. We don't have the right amount of vacancy. Sorry, the right type of vacancy. I'll say that. So like, yes, we have a third of, like, again, I'll just keep using the downtown one because I'm familiar with it. Yes, a third of it is vacant, but maybe 10% of that is actually ready to go for what businesses need. So yes, there's a lot of vacancy, but it's actually not usable vacancy, if that makes sense. So we need to make sure that we're paying attention to what that looks like.
Okay.
And that we just need to go where the market's going, because right now they're not wanting it, and there's a lot of good reasons why.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
Is it break, or do you want me to go ask my questions first? Oh, yeah, maybe the speaker. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we can take a break at 3:30 if.
Oh, and I forgot that we were, yeah.
But do you have more than 2 minutes of questions?
I could make him quick.
Okay, yeah, give it a try.
I don't have too many questions. I guess just, I feel like there's a lot of numbers that are thrown around, and like your presentation talked about 33% vacancy rate, but the report itself talks about, and I know that like the boundaries are probably different for this, but 12% in the downtown, like these numbers are not even like close. So I feel like,
Yeah.
where can you cite source your,
Yeah.
and how, like, what was it factoring in to get to that?
Yeah, so it's the retail one in particular was a study that I actually did at the University of Alberta, where we went within the DBA boundaries, and I'm happy to share this report. It was actually a report that the city commissioned under Tom Gervin's funding. So what we actually ended up doing was we went around and like literally counted the vacancy, and we did it by units, so not by square footage, and we didn't take them all into consideration. So if we took them all into consideration, it would have been much higher. So this would have been the summer of 2023. We walked around, and I understand that we're coming up on 2 years, and if it went down that much, I would be very surprised. But I would say that going from, I don't know where the 12% is coming from. I've seen that in an Alta study, and I would love to know where they got that number. But if we're looking at square footage, and if we take them all into consideration, it's certainly so much higher. And yeah, so summer of 2023, it was just under a 34% vacant.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is where, like, I always think about going back to my experience with Tamarack, like, no numbers without narratives and no narratives without numbers, because a lot of numbers can be thrown around, but it's the context of what they're actually measuring that might be different. Because it sounds like the city's report is not including vacant units that are not actively seeking to lease, as an example.
Yep,
Right.
that's a great point. Yeah, and we also don't know if there was like, if if how many doors were how many spaces behind them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then if we're looking at like lobby areas that actually don't have direct access to street front, but kind of are, you're right. So there's so many different parameters and like almost like want a glossary of what that, like
Yeah.
what vacancy actually looks like. But I would say regardless, you hit the nail on the head, there's a huge discrepancy in those numbers. I think generally speaking though, from if we were to take like the resident or the person walking around and we were to take their experience, it seems vacant. And I think we don't have a vibrant area just yet. And yes, it's getting better, but you know, if you look at the game nights versus non-game nights, you can see this difference of what it looks like when we have critical mass of people. And I think you're right about the numbers. We want to make sure we are all kind of, you know, working off of the same set. I think the overall goal is how are we incentivizing that private investment so more people are using that area so it's safer, we're generating more money, businesses are making more money, and therefore and we all have this uplift of what's going to happen with that space.
Okay, but there, like, the chamber also came and spoke in favor of the extension of the CRL and some
Yes.
of the projects that would be within that.
Yep.
There's only so much money to go around. And we've also heard from the chamber not to raise property taxes.
Right.
So
and so that
so spend more money on this, where would you see less money being spent?
right. So we don't necessarily want I wouldn't say that we're an organization that is advocating for lower taxes. We want to see the taxes spent appropriately with a higher return on investment. So I understand what you're saying. There is a
We
ceiling.
have definitely received letters from the Chamber of Commerce since
Yeah.
I've been on council that said,
Yeah.
do not increase property taxes, it's detrimental to business.
And I stand by that standpoint. I think there's a difference between versus increasing versus actively asking for it to decrease. And I think the difference here is that while we can't have the property tax increase at the rate that it is increasing, we're losing our competitive advantage when we do that and overall investability, if that's a word, for the city of Edmonton. What we do want to see is a higher return on investment for our tax dollars. So if we are spending our limited funds on a bunch of different social programs or a bunch of different things that don't actually yield return, so Edmontonians can have a better life, that's what we're advocating again. That's what we're advocating for. So it's almost like that economical horsepower is that social cart. And so you're right, we're advocating spend money on this and spend money on that. And I stand by that because those, if we can fund those, then we can fund other things. And
Yeah.
that's where we're going to start to see real investment happen in Edmonton.
Yeah, thanks. I'm out of time, but I would love to chat with you more about this offline.
I'm happy to have that chat. Yeah, definitely.
All right, that was a nice tight 2. We will come back at 3:48. We are on recess. Or on break. that. And just in the interest of time management, if we could consider that, of course, ask all the questions you need to ask. But it would be probably a good idea to not have to reconvene for just about 30 minutes of work. So if we could get it done today, I think everyone would be profoundly grateful. Okay, so with that, that concluded our questions of our speaker. We'll now move to questions of administration.
You selected it.
And I selected it because we had a speaker. I have no questions, but I do believe that we have a motion to put on the floor to consider, and I don't know if it's best as a notice of motion or as a subsequent motion. So, but we do have, I see now the screen populating, so Councillor Tang.
Councillor Principe.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Principe, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Paquette. I did have a question. Sorry, just trying to. I did have a question in regards to something that was mentioned earlier, and just trying to get, like, you know, we were talking about commercial to residential conversions, and not here, not in this, but, you know, as a council, we've discussed that before. I'm just trying to understand, like, what are we trying to achieve? Like, this seems counterproductive to that discussion.
Well, Councillor, I'd say they're two very separate conversations. In terms of these programs, these are really designed to, especially align with the budget ask, you know, for smaller scale type developments, and really to support, you know, improved commercial spaces that are predominantly designed for retail and for, you know, refreshing those and making them better candidates for tenants and for potentially higher income. So, the conversation around office to residential conversions, I think, is a much different one than this, and at a much larger budget scale.
Yes, that's for sure. However, you don't see them as conflicting or like them working against each other at all? Is it like I'm not sure. I don't understand. Maybe it's different buildings. Maybe it's different types of buildings. I'm not sure if they're counterproductive.
Yeah, these programs are largely, and maybe Yvonne can jump in terms of it, whether they're exclusive in terms of the eligibility is largely for ground floor retail commercial spaces versus a residential to office conversion building could potentially be the entire building, including the upper floors. So I think in terms of the product, it's a much different audience in terms of the types of projects that would potentially be solicited, obviously considering we don't have a program for residential office conversion at this time.
Okay, thank you. And from what we heard from the speaker about maybe it's not quite enough funds, why did administration pick this amount?
So our recommended amounts are consistent with what we've seen from a max capacity in terms of applications. So we have a collection of data over the years, but we took the high water mark in terms of the application. So we feel like this funding provides an opportunity to make a substantial impact, but it also would allow us to evaluate based on current uptake of the programs and potentially come forward with an increased ask in subsequent budget conversations. That's to be determined, but we felt like aligning the recommendations for the funding with what we've seen historically in terms of the maximum uptake was a good approach.
Okay, and so would this be something that we would look at yearly?
At the discretion of committee and council in terms of, like, evaluation would be ongoing for sure, but in terms of, you know, potential work to address future budgets and maybe augment them, that would be a conversation that we're open to.
So we would expect you to come to council or to committee and say, you know, we're seeing that this is being oversubscribed, maybe it's time to increase, or is that, should that come from council?
Well, I think those conversations could could happen at the appropriate times. I won't predict in terms of whether we'll see an annual report or whether it just will be aligned with budget conversations. I think that could be determined. But in terms of reporting back, I think there'll be a mechanism that will allow committee and council to be informed about the programs.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tang.
Yeah, great, thank you. Jen, just maybe on that, I mean, I feel like we do have quite a number of incentives for commercial, or just a variety of incentives. I'm thinking about the economic development grant, for example, and I know that's like done. Even the corner store, is that right? It's the storefront, which was part of the renewal. I guess now that like this sort of annual update, you know, is this going to be like if we want to assess for uptake for a lot of these things, I'm almost wondering, you know, if there's capacity or ability to a bit of a report back on how are we doing on all the uptakes on the incentives that we put out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Just for clarity, the storefront improvement program.
That's an IIS thing, right?
No, that's one that's administered through Economic Investment Services. If you may be referring to the infrastructure fund, which is a separate program, maybe not.
I just feel like in the last while we've been talking a lot about different incentives, but just even for myself, I'm like, how are those doing? You know, do we get the yearly subscription that we anticipate?
Yeah, in terms of reporting, we can take that away and talk about
Okay.
what type of opportunities there are in the future to align the reporting.
Okay, great, thank you. Just wanted for follow up on the presentation we heard earlier from the speaker about the residential permit. Can you just like clarify?
Councillor Tang, I can provide that clarity. In 2024, we've certainly seen activity pick up with this city receiving development permit applications for 741 residential units across 7 projects in the downtown. And since 2021, there's resulted in over 1,900 residential units downtown.
Great, and that information, we'll just make sure we get that to the various stakeholders so they have that information.
That's correct, and that was direction council gave subsequent to the CRL report 2 weeks ago, and so that letter will be going out right away.
Perfect, thank you. And then for, I guess, we have data, because I've seen data from some of the real estate companies about commercial vacancy outside of the designated BIAs or the ones that we're talking about today. And we have data on that, right? Because I feel like the vacancy rate has been actually relatively low in, like, for example, in the suburbs, or sort of outside of some of those zones. Did you use that information to inform location, geography?
Yeah, so in terms of commercial vacancy data, outside of the office market, which is reported by multiple industry brokerages and consistently every quarter, the commercial vacancy data is inconsistent and not collected in as organized a manner across the industry as office data. So to summarize, that provides inconsistent data and not necessarily perfectly reliable, given some of the complexities associated with other commercial properties that would typically be retail. So the report that Ms. Thompson referenced was one that we supported through the Downtown Vibrancy Fund and was a on-the-ground collection of data, which is something that's difficult to do time over time. So in terms of the data presented, we did note that, you know, there are inconsistencies with it. So quite frankly, it's difficult. I cannot give you a number, and I'm told that industry cannot give us another either as it relates to this. So
I guess where I'm going with that is, you know, ideally, yeah, I would love it for it to be more citywide. You know, I think the geography you're recommending doesn't touch all the wards, for example. How can we do it more equitably? But I also do acknowledge the point I think the speaker made around, you know, I think in a lot of areas, the vacancy maybe is not quite as an issue as some of the specific zones, right? I'm just trying to support your recommendation here.
Yeah, I mean, our alignment with both previous policy, which was BIAs and the 2 additional units, along with priority growth areas, and the addition of the opportunity to include near transit stations
Yeah.
consistent with infill infrastructure fund, we feel just provides consistent direction as it relates to the eligibility and aligns with both the city plan and other priorities as it relates to city building and growing.
I must admit, I read this in preparation for the last committee meeting, so it was been a while. I do think what you have recommended is sound, and just to be clear though, for future budget cycle, you're not specifying whether it's a fall SOBA or the 4-year budget, correct?
In terms of,
Well, your next steps, slide number 9, it says during a future budget process, you're not
yeah,
specifying.
it's at council's
Yeah,
discretion,
okay.
council committee's
I'll
discretion.
have a motion on my next round, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just ask a quick question for the clerks. We've got a potential motion. Is it cleaner to just use that motion as the way to frame this discussion, or would we want to receive for information and then do a subsequent?
No, if you have a motion that you want to make today, that can take the place of receive for information. And if you want to
Perfect.
get it
Okay.
on the floor, then we can start discussing it.
Sounds perfect. Okay. Councillor Stevenson, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think there's a lot that's really exciting in this. Just want to dig into a few points. Do we know, like, we know, I think previously, I just want to confirm it, this was an undersubscribed program, is that correct?
I guess depends on what your definition of undersubscribed is.
Like, it accumulated money over time because it wasn't going out the door?
We did not, there were times when we did not meet the maximum amount available to us, correct?
Great, okay. And so is there some confidence that we understand what the barriers were and that this new program helps to identify that?
Yeah, we feel like, there's expanded eligibility costs for one, just in terms of how the market has shifted as we continue a post-pandemic recovery and the rapid growth that we've seen from our city. I think that, our crystal ball is as cloudy as anyone's, but like I said, in terms of the level of funding, we felt like it was consistent with what we've seen from a high water mark, and that we're confident that that's the appropriate approach.
Yeah, that's great. So I think you heard my question probably to the speaker earlier, just around some concern about building new commercial space while also dealing with vacancies. So I just want to know that it is framed as the redevelopment. So are we anticipating that existing commercial is maybe being torn down and redeveloped, or is the redevelopment, is that operative in terms of having changed it from development to redevelopment?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of options, right? You see from a vacancy perspective for existing buildings. I'll let Yvonne jump in here in terms of if we expect to see, if there's any expectation in terms of what the split would be. My feeling is there's not, but I think that the programs collectively provide project applicants the ability to do a variety of things that could respond to emerging market needs and would allow them to have more suitable spaces. And I don't think it necessarily, in terms of like adding more, I don't feel like it would support an oversupply of one particular product necessarily.
And I guess, like, what is the basis of that, though? Right? Like, why aren't we worried about an oversupply?
Well, I think in large, I can't speak with certainty, but one theory is that, these grants make up a small portion of the overall project cost. So in terms of a developer developing a product that they feel is going to add to an already saturated market, it feels like that wouldn't be a decision that would necessarily be made. And again, the programs allow for a variety of options, so it's definitely not dedicated to simply building new commercial spaces, particularly in areas where we see a high vacancy rate already.
Yeah, and I think I just feel a tension there in terms of, and I think maybe the solution is outside of these two programs, but I mean, we do see vacant retail, storefront retail, downtown, in new buildings, right? It's not necessarily that it's just older. So like what strategy are we taking? Because I don't know, I mean, maybe the question is just, will these programs help those units? do we think?
In terms of new builds? Yeah, and typically the eligibility, I'll let Yvonne speak to the eligibility of new buildings.
For the interior building improvement grant, in the past, it's only been available to commercial units that are in a building that's at least 10 years old or 20 years old. And that's just because those are the older buildings are the ones that need that funding more than the newer builds.
Okay, and so it's sounding like it would need to be a separate strategy for dealing with those newer builds that have this vacancy. It wouldn't necessarily be addressed through these two programs.
That's correct.
Okay, that's something to think about, maybe for some future ones, future work. I just wanted to confirm as well, so I think I read in the eligibility, for the interior improvements, they have to have a lease in place?
That is correct.
Okay, so it's sort of like, they have a tenant that's already committed, they're doing the tenant fit up.
That is correct, and that's to avoid city funding going into a commercial unit that just sits empty for the
Vacant.
next 6 months to a year.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I'm so sorry, I will have to come around for just a few last questions.
I think we got the gist. No, Councillor Tang, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just move that, so this is 3 parts. Part 1, that administration prepare an unfunded service package for consideration during the 2025 fall supplemental operating budget adjustment to provide ongoing funding of $700,000 starting in 2026 for the commercial vacancy reduction grant and commercial redevelopment grant programs as outlined in the April 2nd, 2025 Urban Planning and Economy Report UPE 02251. And this is due date fall 2025. And then part 2, that administration prepare amendments to policy C216C storefront improvement program policy to allow a project to be eligible for funding once every 10 years. That's due date Q4 2025 executive committee. And then part 3, that executive committee recommend to city council that policy 553C development incentive program be rescinded. Just very quickly to introduce, so part 1 and 2 are based on, some of the recommendations coming from administration in the presentation today. I think I initially had it in mind for the next 4-year budget cycle, but I think just given, the speaker presentation earlier, but also, given I think right now the business community could really use if we're facing quite a bit of challenges with a variety of factors, perhaps sooner better than later. Obviously, this is for the next council consideration, but we're just putting that here. And then for that part 2, thanks for some input from Councillor Stevenson on this. The current structure is that a project cannot reapply just in general, and businesses do inquire about it, and it addresses a bit of that program design barrier that is in place, and just make it easier to provide this incentive. So that's my introduction.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And we'll go back to Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, sorry. Just want to talk a little bit more about some of the evaluation criteria. So I understand that these new programs won't have sort of the same requirements around climate performance, but is that something that would be weighed in the evaluation, assuming that there's more applications than there is funding?
Are you talking about the interior, or the grant for the interiors, or for the new construction?
Definitely the interiors. My
So-
understanding, though, it's both, though.
Yeah, so there is currently, or there was some consideration for energy efficiency and environmental sustainability, and that will be carried forward into the new programs.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, because in the second column, it lists energy efficiency and climate resiliency, but then on the far right column, this is an attachment to, against a condensed version of the previous design criteria. So the previous design criteria are
includes environmental, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I'm
it's a bit
sorry.
confusing, sorry about that.
No, I understand. That's really great. Great to hear. And then attachment, apologies, 4 speaks to, the opportunity for the requirement to have the benchmarking program in place. Is that also going to be a consideration?
That can be a consideration, yes.
So can be, but will it be? Like, I just,
It's difficult sometimes it's difficult for the interior building improvement program, for those smaller grants going to businesses that are already, or that are moving into a new space. They sometimes, in my experience, hesitate when asked to do that benchmarking because it is an additional step that they have to complete before they can actually get their business open and start earning money.
okay.
So I've had some pushback in the past, but it's certainly something that we can add.
Okay, but again, I'm understanding, I think, climate performance is still going to be part of the evaluation
Correct.
process. Okay,
Correct. We do want to see something that's a bit better than what was there before.
great. And then finally, just a very last question. For the redevelopment grant, is the grant, so the 400K, I know this is a bit of a pedantic question, but does that only go towards the commercial components rather than the residential components?
That's
And the reason I ask is that, we do have a lot of other housing incentive programs through our affordable housing investment program. I think it just seems, what is our thinking around what I'm really hearing from the intent of this program is to support the commercial development side of things. And so I'm feeling like, does that dilute it, or does it shift where we're investing our dollars if it's also effectively paying for residential units?
I would say the nature of the budget, making the mixed market, making the mixed use properties available is really a two-pronged benefit in terms of supporting more commercial and more residential at the same time, particularly in terms of adding the new areas consistent with the infill infrastructure fund that are designed around transit and encouraging more transit-oriented design and supporting those investments that we've made from a city. So yeah, I think overall the project, the eligibility for that is to encourage kind of both components, and hopefully the incentive will help push those projects forward.
Yeah, but again, I think the report says we would only anticipate sort of 2 projects a year.
Yeah, 2 or 1, depending.
Yeah, and okay, no, I appreciate those answers. I think it's just, I see the sense in it. I think that if, like, a residential development grant is different than this, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so we're not contemplating that, but in some ways we are kind of creating a mini one, as long as because again, if I think about our downtown development incentive program that was focused on residential, but most of them did have some sort of mixed market component, right? It was mixed use.
Yeah, there was a residential component to the program previously, but that was since changed, and that's the recommendation is to continue with that change moving forward. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Chair Paquette. I just wanted to touch on what Councillor Tang was mentioning about other areas of the city possibly being able to access this programming. Is it something that we could see if we're not seeing it maybe utilized as much as we were expecting?
Yeah, I think in terms of, as evaluation, uptake is obviously one of the key components, whether it's being utilized. So I think moving forward, if uptake doesn't meet where we feel is the case, I think, that can be evaluated and adjusted accordingly. But as mentioned right now, we feel like the recommended approach from an areas is consistent with our priorities, and that's our recommendation to move forward.
Okay, and would you need direction from council if you were to go outside of the area?
We would.
You would, right? Yeah.
So Councillor Principe, we would just, continue to evaluate and monitor the program, and if we find that there's not uptake, then we would come back to council with recommendation with opportunities to better utilize the resource. So we've done that in other programs. Tom could speak to, one of the downtown grants was not well utilized. We expanded it to other areas and for other opportunities. So we do try to continually adapt and respond to what the market needs to support businesses.
Okay, great. Yeah, it would be nice to see it expanded to other areas of the city, but I think that this is a good start, or continuation in another way. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, seeing no other questions, I suggest we take this to a vote. So, unless anyone would like to speak to this. And not seeing anyone? Excellent. Oh, wait, are you saying nope as in nope, I'm pulling up notes, or nope, I don't want to speak to this? I'm saying I would like to speak to it. All right, go ahead, Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry, I just wanted to very quickly hop on and thank Councillor Tang for putting this motion forward, and particularly point 2. I didn't ask any questions about this, but it's something that I hear about very frequently from businesses I represent, and areas that I represent. Folks who are buying a new storefront, a new property, they want to invest in it, but the owner maybe 15 years ago applied for some updates which are now outdated and they're no longer eligible. I'm really pleased to see that the 2 programs in front of us today, the redevelopment incentive and vacancy reduction grants, are removing that one and done clause. I think that's a great approach. And the second point just extends that same logic to another really successful investment program in our city, the Storefront Improvement Program. So thank you for bringing that forward. I think overall there's some great opportunities here to help support reinvestment in our commercial areas, smart redevelopment in strategic areas of the city. We've seen the success of these in the past, and I'm excited to see it continue forward in this new iteration. Thank you.
Well said. I'm convinced. Let's vote.
Oh, can I close?
Oh, and we still have someone to close, and that would be Councillor Tang. Please go ahead.
I'll be brief. I think this has been pretty straightforward. I absolutely appreciate in this kind of economic time, the time that we're in, a lot of the small businesses are very much struggling, and I think intentional, thoughtful incentives are critical to support the local economy, and why not build on the success of things that we have seen that has worked. I am always paying attention to commercial vacancies in my ward through the various brokerages and the data they release, and in general, I'm heartened to see some of those. Not vacancy, the opposite of vacancy. I'm glad to see more people more businesses are occupying physical spaces, and by going with a more data-driven approach with some of this grant and determining some of the locations, I think that's a sound approach. And if we are seeing other needs elsewhere in the city, I'm also hearing there's a willingness to adapt. So I just wanted to speak to that point a little bit. But overall, I think this strengthens and is part of kind of the city's business-friendly approach, and seeing where we can help and make things better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I didn't mean to, I just following the speakers list, so thank you for reminding me. All right, thank you. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
And display the vote. And that is carried. Very well done. Thank you to administration. And we're now moving to item 4.1, public engagement policy renewal. And so we'll just wait for the changeover there. This was selected by Councillor Tang, so I'll just double check. Do you need a presentation, Councillor Tang? Yep. Yeah, so we'll get the presentation and then we'll proceed with questions.
Sorry, I missed that while I was shuffling. Did you want me to just get right into the presentation?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, awesome. All right. It's good afternoon, Executive Committee. I'm Jen Badry, Interim Chief Communications Officer, and I have some of my team joining me online today, including Lisa Glover, Director of Integrated Communications, who oversees our
Going to
community
pause you
engagement
for
team.
1 second, just making sure that everyone can hear you.
Sure, you can just lean in a bit more.
See if I can scoot up. Is that better?
Let's try it.
Okay. Okay, we are here to present the proposed revisions to the public engagement policy as outlined in attachment 1 of the Public Engagement Policy Renewal Report, OCM 02805. Next slide, please. To begin, I want to highlight that what you have before you is a council policy, and it is one of the few policies that the MGA mandates the city to have and review every 4 years. Administration delivers the engagement service on behalf of the city and provides support with drafting, reviewing, and implementing the policy. Edmonton's public engagement policy embodies the spirit and honors the contributions made under the guidance of the Council Initiative on Public Engagement. It was first adopted by City Council in 2017 and renewed in 2021. The city is committed to improving the policy with each renewal, so we don't just want to review it to tick off a box, so to speak. We continuously seek to improve it. Next slide, please. Council policies themselves are intended to be commitments to residents, aspirational in nature, provide direction, and are specifically linked to policy directions in the city plan. And all of the city plan policy directions related to public engagement have to do with equity, diversity, and inclusion. Next slide, please. The public engagement policy takes all of this into account and states what the city intends to achieve with public engagement. It guides our work to use resources effectively, ensure our engagement is inclusive, meaningful, and effective, and overall it sets the vision for how the city listens and learns. The public engagement framework operationalizes the policy, describing how the city's approach and commitment is delivered to public engagement. In general, the policy governs the when and the why the engagement occurs, while the framework will guide the how. Next slide. Our approach emphasizes gathering meaningful input that reflects the diversity of Edmonton, ensuring that a wide range of voices, especially those that are often underheard, are included in decision making. City engagement is aligned with project objectives and supports informed decision making as directed by the policy. The policy's core principles, such as inclusion, accessibility, and responsiveness, help shape how engagement is planned and delivered. Public engagement is not the same as market research. Engagement prioritizes diverse and inclusive participation rather than focusing on a fixed sample size. While market research aims for statistical precision, often using probable sampling, engagement is about inclusivity, accessibility, relationship building, and hearing from a range of perspectives. This means that we often prioritize gathering input that is relevant, thoughtful, and reflective of the people most affected by a decision, rather than solely aiming for a statistically representative sample. Instead, engagement is intentionally designed to be flexible and scalable, aligning with a project's objectives, its impact, and its scope. So for example, when we did the district plan engagement, we had over 5,000 participants because of its broad citywide impact. On the other hand, with Hairside Neighborhood Renewal, a localized project, that had just over 1,000 participants, and that's appropriate and sufficient for its scale. Ultimately, engagement is about quality, inclusivity, and supporting that informed decision-making through the input that reflects Edmonton's rich diversity, not about hitting a single participation number. So the policy ensures we engage in ways that are appropriate, proportional, and aligned with the decision at hand. Next slide, please. One of the key takeaways from this report is that the City of Edmonton's public engagement policy and framework is already excellent. The city is recognized as a leader in the public engagement field. We are frequently recognized for pioneering best practices and setting a high standard across Canadian municipalities. For example, only Edmonton and the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo explicitly prioritize Indigenous engagement, integrating memorandums of understandings as such. After initial policy was launched, the city received an award in 2018, as well as more recently in 2020. The City of Edmonton's budget, 2023 to 2026 engagement project, also won a 2023 digital award. So my correction, please, there. Next slide. The policy renewal process involved significant research and internal consultation. Administration conducted a survey to gather feedback from city staff, city council, and members of the Civic Youth Fellowship. We reviewed the public engagement policies of 26 other Canadian municipalities. We also considered the value input from previous relevant public engagements, including public engagement insight surveys, the Underheard Community Engagement Project, and the Corporate Accessibility Plan. Next slide. So based on our findings and the feedback we received, administration is not proposing significant changes with this renewal, but rather is recommending only a few refinements. Through the review, we recognize that our public engagement efforts need to be aligned with the community expectations and operational realities. The internal consultation showed a desire to clarify policy definitions, reflect the importance of clear language, equity, and fiscal responsibility, and to ensure the policy is consistent with corporate policy framework. So for example, the consideration section of the policy was moved into the framework as we saw this as more of an operational consideration versus that overarching policy goal. Next slide. So just some specific recommendations that we had was the equity-based language that's included in our policy statement and our guiding principles. Additional clarity was added to shared responsibility, guiding principle by linking the explanation to the principle. And since the last policy update, the city has been facing some considerations with inflationary pressures and a rapidly growing population and changing service needs. So in light of all of that, the policy also recognizes the need for the city to be fiscally responsible given our current reality. Next slide. Administration feels the revised policy strikes a balance between honoring previous work, enabling best practices, and respecting present realities. Public participation needs can be met by continually evaluating and improving on administration's engagement practices, tools, techniques, and approaches. Additional work is also underway in the form of a civic engagement project and further Indigenous engagement initiatives. By continuing to involve, listen to, and learn from all interested parties, we are making Edmonton a more vibrant, positive, and welcoming city. Next slide, please. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much. This was selected by Councillor Tank, so we'll go there first for questions.
Great, thank you very much for this. At one point when I was working for the city, I was part of I think the second iteration was the guiding coalition of public engagement. So I've been following this work, so it's been very interesting to read the report. I guess I'm wondering, I think we can talk about the policy, but certainly sometimes I think the public uptake of engagement can be mixed, right? I continue to hear about, I mean, if I can think of, zoning bylaw renewals is one of the most extensive engagement I've certainly seen even as a member of the public. To date, I still continue to hear feedback around we're now like a year into the policy implementation. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. I guess and that's not the only example I can think of. I'm wondering if you can speak to how do we work to address this? Is it possible? And how do we reach kind of harder to engage audiences?
Yeah, I think maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're a bit asking like, how do we know if we've done enough engagement and with the right people?
Yeah, that's a good rephrasing of that.
Yeah, so what we do is we really work quite closely with the different project managers, and we'll know that a project has had sort of quote unquote enough engagement, apologies, when we've done that and when that engagement objective has been met, and the decision makers have the information they need to advance that decision. So that is determined on that project by project basis. So the larger projects, we're going to have a bigger depth and breadth of the way that we engage versus more at the community and local level. Again, not looking for those statistically quotas, so to speak, but what that authentic engagement looks like with those different groups.
Yeah, because I'm looking at some of the jurisdiction stuff that you did. It makes me just wonder, do we want to perhaps follow some of the practices with just a focus on significant projects? Do we want to have greater clarity for governance and roles? I mean, I think we have a lot of clarity, but I'm just wondering if that surfaced anything for the team as you review those research.
Yeah, maybe I'll turn it to Lisa or Muriel on the line to see if they want to speak to that a little bit more specifically.
Yeah, I think ultimately there is not one size fits all solution to engagement. It's really depending on different things like the project specific data, what we're looking to get out of it, different demographics and geographics. So when we look at what other municipalities are doing, we can glean what's working in similar areas, but they may have different needs. So how they may prescribe in their policy may not necessarily be the best approach for how we prescribe in ours. So in looking at the multiple municipalities and how they've laid out some of their information, we feel that we've really found the right balance of giving a policy that sets out our overall framework of our guidance of wanting to be equitable, inclusive, making sure we're bringing underrepresented voices to the table, and also doing the appropriate scale and scope of engagement for the projects that we're doing.
Okay, great, thank you. I appreciate that as part of this work, you had a few different groups of folks that you're engaging with on this policy review on public engagement. But I'm thinking about when our policy came about first, and there was a task force with citizens, with Edmontonians, and then the second iteration there was a bit of a working group, a combination of city workers and Edmontonians. We don't have anything like that now, right? And I guess what's the thinking around Edmontonian involvement kind of throughout this policy development?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that I also posed to my team to help me get my head around the approach to this renewal as well. And so one of the questions I posed to them is, how long can we go back into some of the research or the engagement to glean from those different pockets, being cognizant of engagement fatigue as well. We have a lot of learnings from the Edmonton Insight community. There's more than 23,000 members on there that regularly engage in different surveys that the city puts out at different times. And so we follow those best practices for the years that we can go back to still be relevant in pulling that different information from those different audiences. And so with this refinement, there were some very specific areas that we wanted to focus on, that we engaged with our different, whether it be council or the civic youth group, to focus on those pieces, and then keeping that library of information in mind as well.
Okay, great, thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Chair Paquette. I've been hearing some concerns from residents about their feedback not being taken into consideration. And I think where we might be seeing the concern is that folks feel that they come out and they're engaging and they're being proactive, they're engaging, but yet what they're sharing, they're not seeing reflected. And I think that maybe we might need to be clarifying to residents exactly what it is, the feedback that is going to be. For example, I use this all the time, 132 Avenue, the bike lanes. Several times, several people have said to me, and that's the thing, is they come back to the city councillor and say, well, I came out, I went out, I told them that we don't want this, that we're looking for a different design. But are we not making it clear? This is the design, this is what's happening, but this is where we need your input. Is there a way that we can make things more clear so that people have realistic expectations as to what their engagement, what they'll see through that engagement?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to take away, Councillor Principe. I know that the team has a 6-step engagement process that they regularly bring those materials to sort of let folks know where we're at in that engagement process, what we're looking to glean from that conversation. If the outcome of that is going to be help to shape something that is the way it's designed, or whether it's an informative point to a broader set of considerations. We also have what we heard reports that are regularly published on the backside of a lot of these. But if there's a way that we can help to better connect those dots, we're certainly open to it, so that folks don't have the expectation that when they give certain feedback, that is what will be implemented, but they understand what was considered versus what the output was. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Great question. Councillor Knack, please go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. And sorry, just I think the only question I still had. I appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I've been around for some of these conversations over the years. In the report, sorry, I'm scrolling right down here. I just wanted to double check on the budget actually that you've had. It mentions that you don't have there's no budget adjustments. I'm curious if we need to be doing budget adjustments. I'm a little worried that since COVID, I'm not sure how that budget has changed. So do you have a sense of, or I don't know if you can provide it now, or if this is something that can be provided in a memo, sort of like how has our public engagement budget changed since COVID? And if there's a need for us to look at that and how to make sure we're best responding to people's feedback.
Yeah, that might be something that we do need to get back to you in more details, but it is something I will say that we are looking at on the go forward basis. When we do look at building collectively across the organization the next 4-year budget, where we want to go with engagement, how we're keeping pace with such a rapidly growing city is something that we'll definitely bring forward for consideration. But as
Right,
it related, to this policy, this framework update, there were no direct budget implications for this piece.
Absolutely. Okay. So is that something you could send over, like in the form of I don't know if council needs to make a motion on that, or if you can just send that over. It'd be nice to know, just so we have some insight. And I imagine that'll be built into what you're building for the next 4-year budget request.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can get that over to you, no problem.
Wonderful. That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thanks so much. I just, a few quick questions just around the clarification of the shared responsibility. So I think some of that language helps to clarify, but I'm wondering, for me, I think that shared responsibility is very true. I'm just unclear where we sort of elaborate what that means in terms of citizens being actively involved, being aware of engagement opportunities, things like that. Is that something that is fleshed out a bit more in the framework, or that you think needs greater clarity?
Yeah, that was actually one of the pieces we identified in the report as needing to change in the updated policy, that the current version of shared responsibility is a guiding principle that doesn't necessarily match its current definition. So that is something that we wanted to improve in the next iteration of the policy to provide that clarity and that consistency without altering the intent too much. But perhaps, Lisa, if you or Morel have anything to add to that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so we did clarify it further that previously it just said the engagement of people, where we've now clarified that it is the city and people in that two-way dialogue or conversation, to better show that we're creating opportunities for Edmontonians in an authentic way.
When I see, I think in that section on guiding principles, I see it sort of speaks to, this, for me, there's this, the city's responsibility is to create opportunities for engagement in an authentic way. And I guess that question is that, what is the responsibility on those being engaged with? Like, what are we asking Edmontonians to do when they show up for engagement? What is their shared approach, their shared responsibility in that being a successful project or endeavor?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Lisa, did you want to speak to if there was anything specific that the team had in mind regarding that?
I think when we just look at our overall principles, like we look at things like authentic, we look at bringing different voices to the table. So where, as the city, our responsibility is to provide these opportunities for individuals to provide their feedback inwards. That shared responsibility on the other side is to, bring those insights, bring those perspectives, bringing those conversations to the table that we don't necessarily have day to day. So that's where the responsibility is on the other side to, share that great information that they have to help us build our policy recommendations.
Yeah, I see that for sure. Like bringing that insight. I think it's also, bringing an understanding of the process and expectations, I guess. And, just not sure that gets conveyed in terms of it, like an Edmontonian reading this. But I do think the additions are positive, but just wondering if maybe in the next iteration it's going even further to elaborate on that. And then I just wanted to ask, so the change to add the data-driven approach to sort of manage resources, what type of data or data would we be using?
Yeah, so I think that's part of that library of resourcing that we've built up over years. So just as a quick example, just last year we conducted over 170 projects of engagement. The year before that was 176. So that really builds a wealth of data for us to draw from. So if we do have unique asks or things that we can sort of bring some additional context to as we start to build out what is the need now that you're looking to meet your objective as a project, because we do have this wealth of information that we can back it up with.
Oh, okay. So the data might be, hey, we engaged on a similar project like this, and only like 20 people engaged. So our data is suggesting that we maybe don't need to do a big campaign for this project. Is that
That could be part of it. I think there's always several layers depending on what the project and the project objective is. But I think that would be the starting point for us, is to use that data-based approach to figure out what do we know, and then what's the gap, and what's the gap analysis to help get us that information.
Okay, great. Nope, perfect. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Tang.
Just to move that executive committee recommend to City Council that the revised public engagement policy C593D as set out in attachment 1 of the April 2nd, 2025 Office of the City Manager Report, OCM 02805, be approved.
Great, thank you. Any introduction or anything?
Nope.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Would anyone like to speak to this item? Would anyone like to close?
Sure. I think public engagement is a really critical aspect of policy development. Over the years, I've even just, prior to being elected, been involved in a lot of different projects and engagement that familiarize me with how the city works. But I also do see a lot of perhaps sometimes confusion or maybe different expectation for what those engagements can achieve. And I think over the years, we've tried really hard to work with Edmontonians in setting more clarity. I think we have, a very robust system for setting those roles and responsibility. And I'm always interested to know how we can do better. And I think, the team has did a pretty robust work here in terms of reviewing, revising, iterating, and constantly making it better. So just want to appreciate the work that has gone into this, and all the engagement about engagement that you're constantly doing. I don't think there's a perfect. I don't know if we'll ever really get to perfection with how many people we engage, how much we engage, what that co-creation of city policy can kind of get to, but I think we can always strive to do better. So thank you for that. That is it.
Thank you. Please vote. I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried. Okay, this brings us to our last item of the day, item 4.2. And by the way, thank you to administration. We really appreciate your time and your answers. Item 4.2, 2025 Community Revitalization Levy Update, Downtown, The Quarters, Belvedere. And we do not need a presentation.
Perfect.
So I guess we'll just, unless anyone else wants one, let's open it up and let's not assume. Nope, okay, we're good. So, Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Chair Paquette. I don't have a lot to ask. There's just one thing that I read in 3.1 in an earlier report. I had read about Fort Road has a commercial vacancy rate of 0.1% approximately. And I'm just trying to see, because do they not overlap, Fort Road and Belvedere CRL?
Hi, Councillor. This is Brett Latford with Strategy and Emerging Economy. Yes, they do, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so when I read that, I'm trying to understand why in one report, it looks like it's doing so well. And then in another report, it doesn't look like it's doing as well. So are we missing something here that we're not anticipating?
No, I don't think so. So with the Belvedere CRL, it's much larger than just the Fort Road component. And a lot of the stuff that we've done there has been to incent transit-oriented development or other development, not specifically focused on commercial, although commercial is welcome, of course. What I would say on the Belvedere CRL is we've had several parcels of property recently that have been sold. In fact, the city has, we've been entered into agreements to sell all of the remaining land. And so if we get development there, we fully expect that we will see an increase in revenue beyond what we projected, and we might be finished a little earlier on the overrun that's related to Belvedere.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
Oh, great. I will just, if it's okay, being the councillor for the area, I'll just describe it. But the Belvedere area goes up to 132nd Avenue along 66 and Fort Road. But the Fort Road BIA extends further north all the way up to, I believe, 137th. So that would be the different accounting. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Tang.
Since this item is selected, so maybe I'll just ask to maybe clarify for myself on the shortfall piece, because this was done before the previous discussion and vote on the extension. But with the extension, it will address the shortfall, correct?
Correct. So if we get the extension, as we've outlaid it to council with all of those projects, and we hit the medium scenarios in that extension, we will not have a deficit at the end of 2024.
Okay, and then, sorry, but like if we don't, let's assume that, just so that I understand how this works, but if we, so forget about the extension, but assume that there's nothing there, is there typically like a specific amount of time required to pay off the shortfalls according to the legislation? No? Okay.
No, there's not. It just runs until you paid it off.
Oh, okay. And then I guess just if, given the current cycle that we're seeing such a shortfall, I guess one thing that just kind of occurred to me, I'm like, then do we want to, the motion's done, the new projects are out there, but like, should we limit ourselves so that we don't run into this possibility down the road?
Well, what I would say is that we bring an annual update every year, and those updates will come far more frequently than the capital projects will come. So you'll be able to decide whether you think a project that we listed as a catalyst project is worth funding in light of the current financial situation in the year it comes forward. You don't have to know that answer now.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, okay, I'm happy to, what is it? I'll move that the April 2nd, 2025 Urban Planning and Economy Report UPE 02907 be received for information, and that attachment 5 of this report remain private pursuant to sections 25 and 27 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak to this item? No? I'll just briefly give thanks to administration for the long work on this. This is something that has been going on for a number of years. And, it's just on behalf of my ward and the CRL within there, I will say that there's been so much work, and we see so many good things moving forward at this point. There was a time when station lands was completely fallow and nothing was going to happen there. And it took all hands on deck to sort of move things around and to adjust and to rezone and to re-envision. And now we're beginning to see the investment in the area that we'd always hoped to see. And that is ongoing, and probably by the end of, I think it's safe to say, by the end of this decade, that area will be fully developed. And that's good hard work, and really, really grateful. So thank you. Okay, let's vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried. Okay. So, I do not know of any motions pending. Is anyone going to surprise me with a notice of motion?
We don't do notices
Or
of motion.
we
or
don't do notice of
special.
motion, with a motion, oh, sorry, surprise me with a motion without previous notice. There we go. Not allowed at committee.
Not at a special.
This is fantastic. Okay. You can tell how long it's been since I've chaired a full meeting. Okay. With that, we are adjourned.